You are listening to the Grandest Tour by the Cycling Podcast, brought to you by iwoca. Flexible loans built for small businesses. iwoca.co.uk.
Today we are at the Giro d'Italia.
Kotse čitene, kotse pištine, nus pigude šikora, kotse čitene, kotse pištine, nus pigude šikora, celu mangiano le femmine.
Where are we, Daniele Friberencini?
Well, Riccardo Morresotto. We're in Sicliy, and you didn't know anything about Scylla and Charybdis, which I was disappointed about.
God.
You didn't do Homer at school. You went to a
No.
very posh school. Did you not do Homer? Did you not do the classics?
No.
Not the classics, not Paris-Roubaix and the Tour of Flanders, but I'm talking the Iliad and
No,
the
I
Odyssey.
could never get through James Joyce.
Oh, that's not. I'm not talking about that, Ulysses. So, Scylla and Charybdis, these sort of sea monsters. One Charybdis
Is that my wedding present album?
Scylla and Charybdis. Can I continue? Scylla was some kind of marine nymph that was turned into a monster by Circe, Cerce, the witch, and Charybdis was another sort of sea monster, and Charybdis is on the other side of the Strait of Messina. That's in Sicily, so it's believed that these were the locations of Scylla and Charybdis of Greek mythological fame, and we're in Scylla, so
It's all coming back to me now. Sea monsters.
yeah, hopefully we're not going to be devoured by some evil sea monster.
It's a terrific album, that, by the wedding present. Underrated.
What is?
The Sea Monsters, the album. We listened to it at the Tour de France, actually, because Francois is a big wedding present fan.
Right.
Maybe I'll treat you to that tomorrow. But I think you're talking about something else. I think we're talking at cross purposes here.
Anyway, more
we are
broadly,
on the mainland. We're on the mainland.
Broadly, we've crossed the Strait of Messina, the famously treacherous Strait of Messina. We braved the ferry. Third time I think we've been over on the ferry now, or certainly I have with Lionel in the past. And they still haven't built the bridge. We've covered that in the past as well. No sign of it being built anytime soon. And we've moved from Sicily to Calabria, the toe of Italy. And we're on the mainland.
And, I mean, where we are, we sort of drove ever so slightly north, and the northern tip of Sicily is just across the bay there. You feel like you can almost reach across and touch it. It's very, very close indeed. And as we drove up to our hotel, the light shining on Sicily was very beautiful indeed on the Sicilian hills, which the riders tackled today. We came over a bit early, Daniel. We had a detour in Messina today, didn't we? We visited.
We were on the trail of
the shark.
The shark of the strait. Before crossing the strait, we were on the trail of the shark. We were shark hunting.
We were shark hunting.
Insert joke about needing a bigger boat here, but off we went, didn't we?
We did, and we'll hear about that adventure, and including the Arancini King later on in this episode of the podcast. But today was a sprint stage, but it had a big mountain in the middle, so it wasn't without complication. Catania to Villafranca Tirrena, 140 kilometres, and as I say, a nasty sting in the tail of that stage. But before the stage even started, there was big news, because Geraint Thomas, who of course crashed in the neutralised zone yesterday, hit a bidon and came down very heavily indeed. He was out of the race, a broken bone in his pelvis on further examination. So that's disappointing for him. I think it's a blow for the race as well. It deprives it of one of the stars, one of the favourites. As I say, a sprint stage today. So a break went right from the start. Three riders, Simon Pello of Androni Giocattoli, Marco Fraporte of Vini Zabu, and Camille Gradec of CCC. They got established. They were never going to stay away, with so many teams keen to bring it back for their sprinters. And also with the climb in the middle, we saw a scenario play out similar to a few stages at the Tour de France this year, when Bora Hansgrohe in particular wanted to get rid of some of Peter Sagan's opposition, the pure sprinters on the climb. It was the Portello Mandrazzi, the climb. And Fernando Gaviria, Elia Viviani, and Scotland's Ali Hodge all slid out the back. That was good news for Sagan and Arnaud Démare, who were still up there. Viviani of Cofidis did get back on, and he did contest the sprint in the end, but Gaviria and Hodge never got back on at all. Joao Almeida, the pink jersey, who was level on time with Jonathan Caicedo, got 2 bonus seconds at the sprint after the climb. They were level on time, so that gives him a little bit of daylight. There was always a danger that Caicedo might snatch the jersey from him. That's less likely now. It all came down to a big sprint finish, really. Very fast and into the finish. Bora Hansgrohe were very active. Groupama-FDJ did a lot at the front and looked impressive. They had a lot of riders up there, including our diarist Jacopo Guarnieri, who we'll hear from. He's Arnaud Démare's lead-out man, and he did a great job. They let a little gap go, as we'll hear, to Miles Scottson, the Australian rider on that team, and it looked like he might have a chance to just clip off. But Simone Consoni of Cofidis, he is Viviani's lead-out man. He had to chase him down, and that set up Démare, Sagan, and Davide Ballerini of De Koning Quick-Step pretty well. Sagan jumped first and fast. He looked very impressive. Démare gave chase, and Ballerini kind of came around the outside. And the three of them...
Sagan was flanked by Ballerini and Démare as though by Silla and Charybdis.
Oh, wow. I like what you did there. But you could not separate them at all. And even in the photo, it looked difficult to separate them. But the verdict was given to Démare. He was the stage winner. It's the 11th win of the season after the restart. He's been prolific, the really in-form rider. The story of the stage wasn't over because not long after it finished, we saw 2 Vini Zabu riders stricken on the ground, looking initially as though they weren't moving. It was pretty alarming. The riders were Luca Wackerman and Etienne Van Empel. Wackerman was taken to hospital. He apparently has a broken cheek and no memory of riding the Giro, so the prospects of him starting tomorrow look pretty slim indeed. Van Empel, I think, is okay, but it's pretty shocking. After yesterday's freak accident involving Geraint Thomas, today it was a helicopter knocked over the barriers. It was low. Helicopters do get low. Barriers obviously not tied down properly, and they were blown over into the riders as they rode past. A very alarming incident, very dangerous incident, and a terrible price to pay for Wackerman. A bit of news away from the Giro today. The medical tribunal into Richard Freeman, the former Team Sky and British cycling doctor, finally got underway after many, many months of postponements. And some pretty large bombshells going off there from Richard Freeman, who was finally fit to testify. He was questioned by his own QC and the prosecution, I suppose. He is accused of ordering testosterone for athletes. He did admit ordering Testogel, which is a testosterone product, and lying about that to colleagues and to UK anti-doping. But he said today that it was for Shane Sutton, the former head coach at British Cycling, who also worked for Team Sky and was Bradley Wiggins' coach. He said it was for Sutton's personal use. Sutton has denied this. But the other revelation in the hearing was that Freeman had destroyed a laptop with a screwdriver. He claimed because he didn't want information on it to be found, well, to protect medical files is what he said.
Was this the famous laptop that went missing
in
Greece?
No, it's the second laptop that's gone missing.
Don't mention laptop. I've had problems of my own with a laptop today.
Yeah, his laptop was stolen while he was on holiday in Greece. This was a second laptop. Very strange, and that will continue, and there'll no doubt be more from that in the coming days. The other bit of news away from the Giro, Equipe Polka, the women's team with Lizzie Banks, among other riders, they've been riding extremely well. They were saved mid-season when their sponsors Bigla and Katusha pulled out, and it transpired today that Equipe Polka, the French fashion brand, hasn't been paying its sponsorship dues, so the team is now faced with closure once again. And we'll hear from Lizzie Banks, who, of course, co-hosts Service Course for the Cycling Podcast later in the episode.
Rich, as a footnote to the news roundup, the proper non-fake news, can I add some scurrilous rumour?
Yes, please.
Well, I heard yesterday, and how do you like the sound of this, that Remco Evenepoel would like to do the Vuelta. I think he was back on his bike at the weekend.
2020 Vuelta?
Yeah, started training at the weekend. Training. I think he did 70 kilometres at the weekend. And I've heard that he, not putting pressure on his team, but has made it known to De Koning Quickstep that he wouldn't mind a trip to Spain in a couple of weeks. I mean, I've spoken to riders in the past about how long, from a standing start when they've been ill or injured, how long it takes to prepare a Grand Tour. The answer I've generally got back is about 6 weeks. If he was to go there, as I say, this should be filed at the moment under scurrilous rumour. But if he was to go there, that would be some effort, wouldn't it?
One final little bit of news from
you're not
today.
You're not going to say
React
anything.
to that.
You're not going to react to that.
I reacted to it earlier in the car.
In the car? That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it seems unnecessary. He's such a young rider. He's got his whole career ahead of him. Why rush? Why risk it? A couple of weeks ago, Annemiek van Vleuten rode the World Championships having sustained a fractured wrist at the Giro Rosa, and you can understand that. She's a rider at the other end of her career, you could say. But Evenepoel, I don't see the risk seems to be potentially greater than the gain there. But again, we're not privy to his actual condition or his fitness.
All I'll say is we've got Belgian colleagues at the Giro who've been put on red alert, who've been told don't necessarily make plans for the last week of the Giro, or don't assume you're going to be at the Giro. You might be dispatched to the Basque country in the start of the Vuelta if Remco is starting.
What I would say is it's a shame he's not here. It's a shame he did crash at Lombardia, and it's a shame he's not here because that would have added a lot of interest to this race, I think. Just on the subject of crashing, Ben Swift, the Team Ineos rider, also had a crash today and seemed to hurt himself. He said he struggled through the stage. That's not great after his team leader Geraint Thomas crashed yesterday, but hopefully the damage is not too bad.
You are listening to the Grandest Tour by the Cycling Podcast, brought to you by iwoca, flexible loans built for small businesses. Join 50,000 customers taking on life's twists and turns and scaling new heights with iwoca. If you run a business, find out more at iwoca.co.uk, iwoca.co.uk.
Thanks very much to iwoca, our title sponsor. We're grateful to them for their support of the Cycling Podcast and our various spin-off shows. If you run a small business and you'd like to know more about what iwoca can do to help you, go to iwoca.co.uk. We should say as well that iwoca, of course, are great supporters of cycling. They sponsor the Kendal Cycle Club as well as ourselves, and they support a lot of their employees in riding to work, and some of them recently did a charity ride, London to Brighton. We're hoping to hear more about that during this Giro. So thanks to iwoca. Daniel, it was a sprint finish and a thrilling one, missing a couple of the top sprinters, you could say, in Gaviria and Ali Hodge. Alvaro Hodge, I should say. He's really Colombian, but we like to claim him as Scottish. We don't have many riders in the World Tour, so we'll have him. And he has got Scottish ancestry. Just to explain that one. But it was, we saw a lot of these kind of finishes, didn't we, at the Tour as well? Very close. There's not much to separate these guys. And today it was Démare, Sagan, and Ballerini. Sagan, what does this guy have to do to get a win? It's been a long time.
Well, it was another finish, Rich, that underlined the importance of, small margins. Whether the advantage comes from a teammate, a piece of equipment, a bit of timing, a bit of tactical nous. That really is the difference between winning and losing. And Sagan, I feel that Sagan is being written off a little bit prematurely. Various different sort of components of his riding are being written off. People are saying he's not as fast as he was, he's not as explosive as he was on the climbs, which I think maybe ignores or overlooks the fact that new riders have inevitably come along, and he's still very, very strong. He's
good at cycling.
Yeah,
he's very
extremely good at cycling, and he's here. And in that sprint today, he very adeptly surfed the wheels. He didn't have an awful lot of help.
He doesn't have a lot of help, does he?
No, I mean, there was a lot of work done, obviously, early in the stage, and then Bodnar did great work in making sure that Gaviria and Hodge didn't come back. But when it came down to the sprint, it was really Sagan and his bike handling that did all the work. There's still going to be some happy days and some successful days ahead for Sagan. especially in this Giro.
He looks really sharp and really fit, and he is a sort of rider who's probably in better shape now than he was at the Tour and at the start of the Tour. Partly because of his build, I think he needs a lot of racing. But the other day on the hilltop finish in Agrigento, and today, two very different finishes. He's been second both days, and he's really close, and he's really, really sharp looking. And if you watch the final couple of kilometres of today's stage, he had to do a lot of adjusting, fighting for wheels. Démare had a much smoother ride on his teammate Guarnieri's wheel. Shall we hear from Jacopo Guarnieri?
We should.
So here we are. First win of the Giro. Really happy. Everyone is really happy. Today was not an easy stage. We knew there was a really, really long climb in the middle, and we were afraid of Bora to put the hammer down in there. It happened, but we managed to stay in the main bunch with numbers. And once we reached the top, we said, okay, we try. We will give it a go. And the finale was a little bit hectic because it started to rain. And even though on the camera maybe it doesn't look like it, we got some turns that were pretty wet. I was really scared. I left a gap from Scottson on the very last corner. It was not intentional, but he didn't understand to slow down, so he went, and it was looking like he tried to anticipate the peloton. At the end, it worked out because Consonni from Cofidis tried to bridge and close the gap. And, well, that was really close. We were waiting for like 5 minutes for the confirmation, and, well, when the officer said, yeah, it's another one, I was like, in Italian, obviously, I said, like, yeah, be careful. If it's not right, I'm going to punch you. And he was afraid, but I was joking. Now we're really, really happy. Today, as I said, was not something we were 100% sure to be able to be there, and we did it, and we were really happy. We are really happy. Let's see what's coming next. We have in 2 days a nice stage, completely flat. Our next target is going to be there, and time to celebrate with some beer. Probably on the bus, because we have 3 hours to reach the start of tomorrow, which will give us a nice 4,200 meter altitude with the climbs. It's going to be a hard day, but the morale will be for sure different than yesterday. Yeah, see you soon.
I suppose, Rich, the question that some people will be asking again tonight, as they have really since lockdown ended, and as a result of Démare's, conspicuous success since lockdown ended, is whether Groupama-FDJ need to revise their plans in future and think about taking Arnaud Démare to the Tour de France.
Six Nations.
Well, to the Tour de France again.
The Six Nations of the Rugby World Cup. We were remarking the other day as they went to sign on, what a huge team they are.
Yes, they are. I mean, we've got the rugby team in Groupama-FDJ, and we've christened CCC the basketball team.
Yeah, they're big units, aren't they?
I don't know what Bardiani would be. I don't know what they'd be. I mean, they're more like a team of jockeys, aren't they? There are a few teams like that, and very diminutive. We expect to see them. We expect them to be prominent in the mountains. But, yeah, the Groupama-FDJ one, I mean, just sort of casting our minds back to the Tour de France, I was slightly disappointed when, almost immediately after Thibaut Pinot's capitulation, I suppose, in the Tour de France, Groupama-FDJ talked about having got things wrong and maybe thinking in the future that they should maybe take Démare and not focus solely on Pinot. I thought it showed a bit of a lack of strength in their own convictions. They've built this, fortress around Thibaut Pinot through recruiting domestiques, and also the team of physiologists and team of experts around him. And I don't see what one poor stage. We all know that Pinot crashed on the first day of the Tour de France, and that was purportedly, the reason for his poor performance in the Tour. It wasn't lack of training form, it wasn't that he had suddenly become flaky, it was as a result of the crash, or at least that's what we were being told. Hence, the theory, the plan, the strategy to put everything behind Pinot was as good, or should have been as good at the end of the Tour as it was going into the Tour. Nothing really had changed. Thibaut Pinot was still the same rider with the same abilities, the same frailties as he was at the start of the race. The only thing that had changed was the crash.
If you're being cynical about it, these teams are in the game for publicity. Pinot is a big story at the Tour, almost regardless of how he's getting on. The sort of daily kind of Pinot watch, the following of Pinot, peddling every revolution with him almost, is part of the narrative now of the Tour. So I wonder if it almost doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's all about winning for that team. It's also about creating stories. I mean, that was the great success of that the documentary last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think it should be said also that Arnaud Démare deserves great credit for not having kicked up any sort of fuss, really, about having been left out of the Tour de France team for a couple of years now. And, as the French national champion as well, currently, he's missing out on the biggest platform, the most glamorous, the most prestigious arena, certainly for a French rider. And he's been the model teammate, the model sprinter, and he's kept on performing and has kept on doing his thing. He has been one of the, not revelations, we've known for many years how good and talented he is, but he's certainly been one of the big successes of this very unusual season.
But I also wonder, Daniel, if Démare's going to finish the Giro, because Paris-Roubaix is a race that could suit him. He is quite versatile. He's not just a pure sprinter. That's a race that he could perhaps target. I'm sure he'd have the support of Marc Madio to do so.
Yeah, he's talked a bit this year about having sort of slanted his training and his emphasis back towards sprinting away from the classics, and of course he's a rider who's gone into the classic season in the past, and particularly Paris-Roubaix, with a lot of expectation on his shoulders, and has not really delivered. And I think he's been slightly burned by that to a certain extent, and consequently he's watered down his ambitions for the classics. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he and also other sprinters pulled out before the end of this race, as they always do at the Giro.
Chute à l'arrière du peloton, cycling podcast team car at the back of the pack, please.
That's the voice of Seb Piquet, the voice of race radio at the Tour de France, interrupting this episode to remind us to tell you that it's sponsored by Stitch Fix. Wouldn't it be great if every clothing store you shopped at had only your size, the styles that you like, and at the price that you want?
Oh, that would be terrific.
Well, there is a company focused on making that happen. Stitch Fix. It's an online personal styling company that makes getting the clothes that you love effortless. It's a completely different way to shop. It's all about you every time. I mean, Daniel, you're always commenting on my style and my fashion. I'm a Stitch Fix customer.
I feel you come into your own in the autumn and winter. I feel you struggle. You struggle slightly in summer and spring with your pale complexion.
Well, hopefully Stitch Fix are listening to this and they can adjust my box accordingly. To get started, go to stitchfix.co.uk/cycling. Set up your profile and they'll deliver clothes personalised just for you in your colours, styles, budget and, of course, size. You pay a £10 styling fee for each fix, which is credited towards anything that you keep. Schedule the delivery at any time. There's no subscription required. Shipping, returns and exchanges are easy and free. Stitch Fix does the hard work for you, making great style effortless for men and women. So get started today at stitchfix.co.uk/cycling. That's stitchfix.co.uk/cycling. stitchfix.co.uk/cycling. Well, Daniel, we've just bumped into Antonio Nibali's sister.
Oh, very good, very good. Where are we?
We're outside the Nibali family shop in Messina. I'm surprised to learn that this is a pilgrimage that you haven't made before.
Never made this pilgrimage. 139 Via Cesare Battisti in Messina. The Nibali family, we'd known this for a long time. They've had like a video shop. It was formerly a video shop, and now there's all sorts in there. And they do photocopying, they do printing, they do greetings cards. We had a quick look inside, didn't we, before Carmen left, and we saw Nibali's yellow jersey from the 2014 Tour de France.
Yes, I wondered if that was one of the items on sale. I'm not sure, but she was leaving in a bit of a hurry. I think maybe with her husband and kids, shutting up the shop. Said her mum and dad were all over.
The whole family is at the stage finish.
Yeah, all cheering on Antonio. And his brother Vincenzo is riding as well, isn't he?
And there's a sign on the door, Siamo al Giro d'Italia a domani. So we are at the Giro, see you all tomorrow. Oh, Rich, just looking at what the Nibalis have got for sale here, you can buy, Peppa Pig, some kind of Juventus kids puzzle, Inter Milan mini football.
The sad thing is, I would have actually put my hand in my pocket in this shop and probably cleared it out. I mean, these are all things that little Maxime would have loved, getting his hands on the Peppa Pig stuff.
Messina fridge magnets, very nice. You get your passport photos at the Nibalis.
So they were videos. They've diversified, obviously, quite dramatically. Still doing DVDs, but posters, plastification, photocopies,
photographs.
Well, I remember it was formerly more of a video shop, as I said. I remember Nibali, the first ever interview I did with Nibali was a Neopro, and he told me about this place, and he told me about how his dad, the Lupo, the wolf, of course, that was Nibali's nickname for him throughout his youth, and still today I think he calls him the wolf. The wolf used to reach up to these dusty old shelves at the top of the video shop, and he used to pull out a cassette, and there was one in particular I think was a sort of Francesco Moser tribute cassette. So was born Nibali's passion, Vincenzo's passion for cycling.
Well, I was really curious to go and just see if they had jaws. I wanted to satisfy my curiosity there to see if they had jaws in there, because I wondered if that was maybe the birth of the nickname as well.
Rich, I think if Napalm was here, he'd be far more excited than Nibali, than about the Nibali family shop. He'd be excited about the neighbour, who is the self-pronounced king of the Arancino, Re dell'Arancino, arancini being the rice balls that Sicily is famous for. I don't know if Messina is more famous than other towns in Sicily, but anyway, we caught a glimpse of a couple of them when we went past, and they're more like rice pyramids than balls. And I suggest we go and have our lunch there now.
I feel like a couple of rice balls.
Dimmi.
Salve.
Ciao, di dove sei tu?
Io sono inglese.
Inglese, io sono italiano.
Sì,
Dimmi.
ciao.
Questo è l'arancino che ho creato io in onore del nostro coetaneo Nibali, Vincenzo Nibali, l'arancino. Ecco qua.
Col re dell'arancino.
Napolo. Sì. Aspetta, dammi un toccatore, Angelo.
Well, Rich, what do you make of the arancino Nibali?
Very fishy, very sharp, maybe there's actual shark in it. I think it's very, if it is, it's very salmon-y. Very nice. So it's kind of shaped like a shark's fin, isn't it?
Not deliberately, I don't think. A lot of them are shaped like that, but at this point, it's like a wizard's hat, isn't it, more? At this point, Napalm would be rubbing his stomach, wouldn't he? Oh, this is very crumbly and delicious.
His vocabulary, like the Eskimos have, thousands of words for ice, and Lionel has thousands of words for food to describe the taste, the sensation of eating it, the texture, everything. I don't have access to the same vocabulary, but it's very nice.
Meanwhile, we're being taken care of very well by the king of the Arancino, Salvatore. He's now been calling up, I think, everyone in Messina. He's got them coming down to be interviewed by us. And meanwhile, we are trying to watch the Giro, aren't we? And we're seeing Elia Viviani struggling to hold on to the peloton.
Well, it's very treacherous looking out there, raining. I think we're in the right place here, Daniel, tucking into our arancini.
Ma lui era piccolo, veniva qua con la mini bici, con la zappa, gli dava un arancino e lui se ne andava.
Ah sì?
Sì.
Ma come persone, come gente, com'è?
Bravo. Lui deve dire grazie a papà, perché il papà è un pochino padre, padrone dei figli, che se sfavano era così, lui non deve fare.
Well, Daniel, you were deep in conversation there with Salvatore, the king of rice balls. What exactly was he saying?
The very same, the king himself. Well, Rich, he was explaining to us what's in this arancino Nibali special invention of Salvatore's, and he was explaining that the reason they've put salmon in there is for the colour pink. And very clever. I was thinking that the arancino Nibali should have been yellow, and it should have had some saffron, some zafferano, which is often used in Sicilian food. But he was also saying, Salvatore, that Nibali's been coming here, the whole Nibali family, as you would expect. They've got the shop a couple of doors down. They've been coming here for years. Little Vincenzo used to grab a rice ball, then just scamper out of the shop. But I hope he paid, or I hope his family footed the bill.
The restaurant, did I call it a restaurant? The
snack bar,
it was absolutely full of laminated pictures, laminated perhaps in the Nibali shop, who knows. It was full of pictures of Salvatore, the king of cheese balls, with
rice balls, Richard.
Rice balls, well, they were very cheesy as well, but with various, I guess, local celebrities, but Nibali was not among them as far as I could tell.
No, slightly odd. That was slightly odd. And Salvatore had some fairly bold claims about Vincenzo and his cycling career. He claimed that when he went to Tuscany as a young cyclist, he was very homesick, didn't want to be in Tuscany, wanted to be back in Messina, wanted to be primarily eating rice balls, arancini.
The Cycling Podcast is supported by Science in Sport. Science in Sport. Fueled by science.
Thanks very much to Science and Sport for their support of the cycling podcast. You can get 25% off all your Science and Sport products at scienceandsport.com.
Does Science and Sport do isotonic
arancini?
That would be good, wouldn't it? That would be good.
Well,
Rice balls, that's a bit of a thing,
Daniel,
isn't it? People talk about...
Yeah, I'll just finish with the code. You
Go
probably
on,
know the code.
Yeah, 25
SISCP25 at scienceandsport.com. It'd be very good a race food or training food.
Bit heavy.
Well, I was going to say, we were there, 7 hours ago?
Oh.
And I'm still wondering if I'm going to be able to eat dinner.
Permission to bore everyone with a little detour, a little tangent about arancini and the name of arancini. Comes from, Rich, arancia, which is orange, right?
Yes,
Italian for
interesting.
orange. But I was very
But it's also pink.
Well,
isn't
in the
it,
course,
Daniel, with a bit of
in the
salmon.
course of my 12-hour vigil at Palermo Airport the other day, waiting for you to arrive, which was very tedious, I bought an arancino, but it was called an arancina, and this threw me completely because I thought I'd been getting it wrong for all these years. Turns out that in the east of Sicily, they're called arancine, and in the west of Sicily, as we were today in the west, they're called arancini. Very strange.
That undermines the whole sort of pronunciation police thing of there being definitively correct and incorrect ways of pronouncing things.
So fruits are pretty much always feminine and ending in an A, very often in Italian, but in Sicilian dialect they don't. They're often masculine, actually, and that's why it's arancino in large parts of Sicily and not arancine. That would be the plural. Multiple
So arancino, though, is this
arancino or arancina if you're towards like Trapani or Palermo.
arancini.
No, arancini if you're where we were today. If you're the other side of the island, arancine.
I hope people can follow this and
tough,
don't make a terrible mistake and ask for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But it's very rich and heavy, isn't it?
They are very rich and heavy.
These things would sink one of these big cruise.
They've powered Vincenzo Nibali to a fabulous career. I horribly exaggerated how wonderful his Grand Tour record was yesterday. I said that he'd finished in the top 10 in every Grand Tour he'd done, apart from the first one. I think there are about 4 or 5 that he hasn't finished in the top 10. But he is very consistent. That was the bottom line.
When he wants to ride for GC, he's very, very consistent.
Yeah,
but sometimes
in all
he
the
goes,
others he doesn't try.
Well, like last year at the Tour de France, he went there to hunt for sage ones, didn't he? And he got one.
Well, the reason, the inspiration really, is besides the fact we were in Messina or close to Messina, was that Nibali really he's become very quickly the favourite for this Giro. He had a nervous moment today, didn't he, when Peter Waning
I didn't mention
crashed.
that in my news roundup, but yeah, he crashed quite heavily and again hit a bidon. He's a veteran Dutch rider who joined the team mid-season during the lockdown, actually, during the pause in racing. And he went down very heavily. I've not heard how he is, but he did get back up and hopefully he's okay. Bizarre to see 2 nasty crashes with the same cause. Usually a full bidon. Geraint Thomas, knowing now how bad his injury was, certainly you can look at his ride yesterday to even finish up Etna as being pretty remarkable. With he's ridden the Tour de France before with a broken bone in his pelvis, but a serious injury. Yeah, very sad that he's out the race, I have to say. I mean, sad for him, but sad for the race as well. That it's a real blow.
Do you know, Rich, at what point in the last, before today's stage or last night, do you know when they took the decision that he wouldn't start? Because I had a sleuth at the team buses today, because we weren't at the team buses, we were at the sign-up podium, which is another story. It was another quite complicated day for us, but I had someone up there who told me that the bike was on the car and then it was taken off the car, and shades of the Tour de France a couple of years ago when Luke Rowe it was actually last year, when he was kicked out of the Tour de France, and there was an appeal, wasn't there? And Rowe was sort of hiding. He was sort of stashed away in there.
Different in the sense that Thomas is injured and Luke Rowe was actually
he
kicked
was
off
stowed
the
away
race.
in the boot of the team car just in case. He got a reprieve at the last minute.
Yeah. I think it was quite a late decision for him not to start, and it came about when there were sort of further examinations. Daniel, a rider who has caught our eye at this tour is Pello Bilbao, the Basque climber at Bahrain McLaren. You spoke to him this morning.
Well, I did, Rich, and he's one of the few riders here who, shocked us all really by coming straight to the Giro from the Tour de France, having ridden the Tour de France. Who are the others? Viviani, Consonni, Sagan, there's Castroviejo, there's Dario Cataldo. Quite a few of them, but Bilbao is riding high at the moment. He's third on general classification.
Hey, first of all, talk to me about the decision to do the Giro as well as the Tour. A huge undertaking, but was this planned earlier in the season?
This was not planned, no, but with a crazy season like this, we need to improvise also. I was never thinking more far away from the Tour, just the intention was to be in the Tour 100%. There I felt every day better and better. I went in progression and I had good feelings in Paris. Together with the team, we took the decision. We started to think on the possibility, and then in the Worlds, I definitely give them the answer to come here, and it's a special race for me. Wanted to have also an opportunity for me, during all the season. I've been working for other riders, and it was also important for me to have personal options, and what a better place than the Giro for that.
What exactly did you do in those 2 weeks between the Tour and the Giro? Obviously the Worlds, but what else?
We had to go directly from Paris to Imola, and I was in team concentration with the Spanish national team. And just easy rides, because in Friday already I had the TT. After rest, do the Worlds, and after the Worlds, Monday I had the trip to go home. It was the short period to be at home now, because already for Thursday we had to be here, Thursday in the morning for the controls. So I just been 1.5 days at home. More than nothing, so I was happy to at least stay with my girlfriend and my family, say hello and turn back to the Giro. For the moment with motivation and good feelings, but never thinking in long terms, just going day by day.
Any hard rides in those 2 weeks at all, or what was the hardest ride?
The longest one, I think it's been 3 hours, never more than 3 hours. It was more important to recover, feel fresh, than making a long day. And also pay attention with the food now, taking into account that I didn't almost train. It was important also to not to gain too much weight, so just that, rest and eat well.
I remember a couple of years ago, Pello, you did the Giro and you did well, and then you went to the Dauphiné and you won a stage. And I remember when you won that stage, you were pedaling huge gears because you were saying you were feeling tired. What do you think is going to happen to your body over the next week or two? What do you expect? What the sensations do you expect?
Obviously I feel tired now, but I'm in a really good shape. Maybe one of the best I ever had, but always with the possibility that from one day to other the engine stops now, because I never tried to do something like this. That's why I wanted to rest as much as possible, and we'll see day by day where can I arrive, but nobody's gonna be surprised if I don't arrive to the third week, no?
That was always very polite and articulate and approachable Pello Bilbao. He speaks very, very good English, doesn't he?
He does. And it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on over the next few days. As you heard there, he feels he's on a bit of a knife edge. It could, his form could desert him at any moment. I was interested to hear what he said there about diets between the Tour and the Giro, because it seems to be a common theme among those riders who have come here. They did very little training between or very little sort of quality training between the Tour and the Giro, and that was also the case of the riders at the World Championship. I mean, I heard several accounts of riders who had barely touched their bike after the Tour de France, or ridden 1 or 2 hours, very easy rides in the week between the Tour and the World Championships. But obviously, if that's what you are doing, then you have to you have to adapt your diet, don't you? Well, Bilbao did that, and he says he's got great form, maybe the best form of his career. Can he stay there where, well, he's third in general classification at the moment, and as we know, the Giro is very much backloaded. The difficulties, the main climbs come at the end, so that doesn't bode particularly well. But as we said last night, I think the general classification could be wide open. A lot of riders will be quite unsure, uncertain of how they're gonna go in the final week. I heard Contador said it, or I saw a quote from Alberto Contador. I think he's working for Eurosport, to the effect that Simon Yates is now completely out of it.
Contrary to what you were saying last night.
I stand by what I said yesterday. I would contradict that quite strongly.
Yes, it's very open, isn't it? We probably didn't give enough credit last night to Harm van Hoek, the young Lotto Soudal rider, who's second in the young riders classification and fifth overall at just 55 seconds. He rode really well yesterday, and as I say, he's a promising young climber, 23 years old. There's an opportunity here for somebody, to emerge as a GC rider. We saw Carl Frederick Hagen last year do that, didn't we? He's a bit older, but somebody here will announce themselves, I think.
Could be Pernsteiner.
Do you think?
Yeah, Pernsteiner. It's Herman Pernsteiner.
Yeah, another Barry McLaren rider.
Who rode very well at the Vuelta last year, went pretty much unnoticed, and again, no one is really talking about him here, but I fancy that he could sneak inside the top 10, if not the top 5.
There we go. Well, listen, I mentioned at the start, terrible news about Equipe Polka. When they came on board to rescue that team earlier in the season, it was kind of hailed as a wonderful development for women's cycling, a brand like the French fashion house Polka coming in, taking over a team. It's all gone a bit sour, unfortunately, and surprisingly so early in their relationship with professional cycling. Lizzie Banks, who is familiar to a lot of you, her fantastic audio diary from the Giro Rosa featured in the most recent episode of the cycling podcast Femina. She also co-hosts Service Course with Tom Wally for us. I spoke to her earlier about the news. Lizzie, well, we got the news today that there are problems with the sponsorship from Polka, which we greeted with such enthusiasm just a few months ago. When did you learn of this?
Yesterday from my team manager. All the riders were informed yesterday, but we've really had very little information, to be honest. They told us what they could, but...
Was that a bolt from the blue then?
Yeah, it was a big shock for everybody. A lot of us have just signed renewed for two more years, and I've been talking with Thomas about new riders coming on the team, and who we think we would fit best with the group, and it's all been about development and where we're going to go the next few years. And on Sunday on my ride, I was talking to my friend and my husband about how I can plan to get on the podium in Flanders next year, and then one day later I'm suddenly looking for a team for 2021.
Is that what you're thinking, that there's no salvaging now of the team?
I think it's probably looking that way. It's a bad situation. Yeah.
I guess the frustration must be that you really seemed to have something good going. I mean, we heard your diary from the Giro Rosa, and a real sense of a togetherness in that team, and a sense that, the sum of you was greater than the parts in a way. You seem to work well together as a team. That must be very frustrating to think that you might not be able to continue that.
Yeah, this is absolutely the hardest thing. We're currently ranked 4th in the world in the team's ranking. There's a reason for that, because we're working so well together, and you just look at the results that we've achieved, and no-name riders have achieved, really. I'm really a no-name. I only started in Europe last year, and all of us are getting these crazy results. Like, we've had so many top 10, Women's World Tour top 10s. It's just, we were really just looking about how we could grow and how we could develop together and what else we could achieve, because we just achieved so much more than we ever thought we would this year, and we really surprised ourselves. And then you kind of start thinking, well, what on earth could we do next year with another year of conditioning and another year of training, another year working together, understanding how each other race, how the races work. And yeah, you get dealt this blow. And, one of the most upsetting things, we're all talking with what might happen, where we might go. And we're just saying, want to get split up. We all want to race together. This is the problem. The thing that makes it so good is not just that we're all good at racing bikes, it's that we're good at racing bikes together as a unit, and with our director as well, who's a massive, he's our 7th rider in the races. I mean, it's a load of shit. It's not really any other way of putting it, but yeah.
You've got to look out for your own interests as well, though, and I guess you're already talking to, or at least approaching, other teams, are you?
Well, I'm in the fortunate position that I have an agent who helps me with this kind of stuff, and it takes a lot of pressure off my shoulders. I know that there's a number of teams that have been in contact since the news went out this morning. Yeah, the situation with the team isn't finalised, and so obviously I still have a current contract with my team for the next 2 years. So before anything could be moved forwards for the next years, then those contracts, if they were going to be dissolved, would have to be dissolved. So yeah, I mean, everything's a little bit uncertain right now, but obviously all the big teams are aware of the situation, and that all of these riders are pretty definitely on the market now.
So that was Lizzie Banks on what looks like the sad demise of her team, Equipe Polka. After the results she's had this year, she won a stage at the Giro Rosa. She was 6th at Het Nieuwsblad. She was 2nd at Plouay. I don't think she'll struggle to get a team, but it's very sad news for a team that really had clicked and were all performing really, really well. Daniel, we should go and find something to eat.
We should, Rich.
A salad, I think, for me.
Well, what we're going to go for tonight, we're in Calabria. There's a type of local pasta that I have never tried before, and I would like to try, and I believe it's called lagane. And it's a kind of pasta made with just flour and water, often served with chickpeas. As you know, I'm not terribly into my seafood. This is an area, well, certainly where we are in the moment.
Must have been painful for you this morning, Catania, walking through the seafood market on our way to the start.
Yeah, seafood. Well, there was a lot of meat as well being chopped, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was very raw. We need Nathan Haas to tell us about the pasta, don't we? Our first episode, Kilometre Zero, was released today, supported by Zwift, thanks to Zwift. And our first episode, Kilometre Zero from the Giro, featured our audio diarists. We heard from Jacopo Guarnieri. Earlier on, we've also got James Knott, Nathan Haas, Joe Dombrowski, Cesare Benedetti, and Rick Zabel. So they have been doing a fantastic job. We'll be hearing a lot more from them.
Rich, before we go, we should also as well talk about tomorrow's stage briefly.
Yes.
Well, it's another, I would say, a medium mountain stage, and we are finishing in a place called Camigliatello Silano, and there's a climb in the final.
In the final? I haven't heard that for a while.
In the final, as we like to say in cycling. And it's a long one, Rich. The Valico di Montescuro is 24 kilometers long. Average gradient 5.6%. It's what the Italians call a salita pedalabile, a pedalable climb, which really means a big gear.
They're all pedalable.
Well, they are.
I mean,
it means a kind of big gear, big ring sort of climb. There's a section in the middle. There's about a kilometre, an average of 11.6%, which is certainly not very pedalable.
They'll have to get off and walk.
Well,
they will.
They will. That sounds pretty tough. But yeah, one of those stages is quite difficult to read. There are climbs before that final climb of Valico di Montescuro as well. Looks as though it could be good for a breakaway. I suppose everyone will be saying in the morning, Thomas de Ghent kind of stage. But we might just see some changing of positions on GC as well.
Simon Yates, the fight back starts here.
There we go.
There we are. Before we go, a reminder that if you would like fantastic cycling podcast jersey designed by Katusha, go to thecyclingpodcast.com. You can buy them directly from us. Also, if you'd like to join Lionel and others from the Cycling Podcast on a Zwift ride, they do meetups Thursday 7:45 p.m. UK time this week and Sunday 9:30 a.m. UK time. Sign up to the newsletter for details of how to join the Zwift ride.
And Rich, we're staying in tree houses tomorrow night, I think.
Are we?
In the grounds of a castle, and we're staying in tree houses.
Really?
That's going to be rather wonderful, isn't it?
We've got our own separate tree houses.
I think so.
Tarzan, excellent. Well, before we go, some thank yous to friends of the podcast. From me, big thank you to Richard Ford, Travis Sittard, Bryn Wilding, Jonathan Walters, Aled Bath and Pike Talbert.
And from me to Alison Barnard, Jeremy and Jennifer Ward, Grant Baxter, Kate Liddell, PG Krangle and Mark Donnan.